Happy New Year, flamingos, and welcome to another Weight Loss Wednesday. We've got a lot of ground to cover today and a lot of stuff for the new year. Today, we're going to be talking about comfort, reward, and cope, intermittent fasting, calorie tracking, hormonal changes, sugar. It's just a lot of stuff came in and we're going to cover it. So let's just jump right in to today's new episode. I'm almost 40 and diet culture and yo-yo dieting has left me with unhealthy habits and a broken metabolism. Any advice? Yeah, lots. You are totally not alone on this one. I'm almost 50. I'm going to be 47 this coming year. And I totally feel like diet culture has left me with a lot of unhealthy habits. Even worse than that, it's left me with, like a toxic relationship with myself and food and eating. And it contributed to a lot of that stuff. The diet culture has been really rough. I'm not sure it's getting a ton better, to be totally honest. Like sometimes it feels like it's worse, not necessarily worse than it was in the 90s and the early 2000s, but I kind of feel like we're ramping back up that way. These are all kind of separate issues though, because there's the diet culture thing, which, destroys our self-talk and undermines our self-trust and makes us feel like we can't do this unless we have some sort of intervention, whether it's medical intervention or intervention from the diet industry. But then there's the yo-yo dieting thing, which, yeah, that will change your metabolism just a little bit. And it's kind of, we don't have that totally nailed down yet. We know that if you have gained a lot of weight and then you lose weight, that there are changes to your TDEE, your metabolism, the way that you process calories does shift, but we don't really have that nailed down. Like, oh, well, if you lose this much and if you've gained that much, then you're going to end up with a 5% shift or a 2.5% shift or whatever. We don't know. We don't have that information. So, well, even if we did have that information, the only thing that you can do is keep going. That's the only option that you have left. I wouldn't worry about trying to change all of the unhealthy habits that you've accumulated all at once. Try and go for incremental changes, those small incremental shifts that are going to pave the way to your overall success. And the thing I think is probably going to be harder is to shift the narrative that you've done something wrong or that you've somehow been at the root of this, broken metabolism or the problems that you have with yo-yo dieting. You got to let all of that go because it's not going to help you. It's about the changes that you're making now that are going to help you to move forward. So focusing on that instead of focusing on where you were and some of the obstacles that you have. I mean, be realistic about the obstacles, sure. And you might have to do some work to narrow down where your TDEE actually sits. The way you do that is you figure out what your total daily energy expenditure, your TDEE, you figure out what that is right now. And the only tool that we have is an imperfect tool because it's not designed for people who have gained weight and lost weight or done the yo-yo dieting thing before. Those calculators just aren't equipped to deal with that. And I haven't seen one yet where you can input like, yeah, my highest weight was this, and then I dropped by this much, and then it went back up. There's nothing out there that can do that. So let's say you're punching all your numbers into the TDE calculator. It comes back and it says you have 2,700 calories a day. So you're like, rock on. You drop down to 2,200 calories a day, putting yourself in a 500 calorie a day deficit because a pound of fat is 3,500 calories. We divide it by 7. You get 500 calories a day for your deficit. But you're not losing the pound a week. You're not losing anything. Okay, so a couple things could be happening. The most likely culprit, and I'm sorry, nobody likes to hear this, but the most likely culprit is inaccurate and inconsistent tracking. You think you're tracking everything. You think you've got the calories down and it's just not happening. Okay, well, we won't worry. We'll assume that you are accurately tracking everything as, closely as you possibly can. Cool. That's where the metabolism shift comes in. So if you've dropped the 500 calories and you're still not losing weight, but you've been a lifelong yo-yo dieter, yeah, it might have shifted. You might need to drop a few more calories to actually get into a deficit because of that shift. And it would be wonderful if it went the other way. Like, I think it is grossly unfair that as someone who used to weigh 338 pounds, I'm currently sitting at like 130 pounds. If though, like I use the example of like, let's say I have a neighbor. Let's say my neighbor weighs 130 pounds and she's weighed 130 pounds her whole life. She gets more calories than I do even though I'm the one who used to weigh 338 pounds and I feel like I need more food. Yeah, it's totally not fair, but that's the way it is. So, of the 3 points that you've asked about, the diet culture, the yo yo dieting, and then the broken metabolism thing, we can actively do something about one of those things. So, the yo yo dieting, we're just going to stop, right? Your goal now is to move away from that and to just make the shift so that this is just what your life looks like now, right? That mythical lifestyle change that everybody's always talking about. There's no backwards, there's only forward. We can't do anything about your history with dieting. Fine. I mean, we're acknowledging it, we're aware that it's there, but we're going to move on from it. The diet culture thing, yeah, we can't. I mean, I am desperately trying to change the conversation about weight loss and about our relationships with food. That's my whole mission in life right now. But it's not something that, as a person who's trying to lose weight, you need to worry about. And honestly, embarking on that type of advocacy work while you're in the throes of it yourself is kind of just a distraction and possibly a bit of self sabotage. So we'll leave that there. The metabolism part, we just addressed that. You can try and shift your deficit just a little bit to accommodate that. So you can actively do a little bit of something about that, but it's not like you can go back in time and undo it or repair it or change it somehow. We don't have the science to do that yet. So you're left with changing those daily habits. And that is 100% doable, which I hope feels really empowering because you can let the other two go. You can't change them anyway. So we're not going to worry about it and we're not going to dwell on it. We're just going to do what we can, which is start with the small incremental changes that are actually going to make a difference and that are going to propel you forward and help you find the success that you need. Can you talk about comfort, reward, and cope? Where does habit eating fit in? Is it part of comfort, reward, and cope? Yeah, I would say so. I think a lot of our emotional eating is habitual. I mean, it certainly was for me, and it certainly is for a lot of the women that I'm talking to. And for anybody who might be new to the podcast, CRC, or Comfort, Reward, and Cope, is the way that I talk about emotional eating. So I believe that any of the emotional eating that we're doing, whether you're eating because you're bored or you're tired or you're excited, you're very happy, you're sad, whatever emotion it is that you're feeding, you're going to tie it back to one of those three things. You're either eating to comfort, to reward, or to cope with an emotion. That's typically the way that it goes. And it's really important to note too that comfort, reward, and cope can all be both positive and negative. We tend to think of emotional eating just in the negative sense, like, oh, I'm grieving, so that's why I'm eating. I'm really angry. I'm really stressed out. We associate it with all of these negative things. But the reality for a lot of us is that we're emotional eating because of positive feelings as well. So whether it's happy eating, I did a lot of happy eating. My first few years with Sean, I was gaining a ton of weight because I was the happiest I've ever been in my life. I was feeling so incredibly free. He was completely non-judgmental, didn't care what I ate. My physical appearance was never why we were together, or that's just not what our relationship is built on. So I felt really, really safe and I could just do what I wanted. So I did. And what I wanted to do was eat. So I did. So I did a lot of happy, excited, joyful eating in especially in the first few years that we were together. So it's important that we keep in mind that things can be both. They can be positive and negative, and sometimes they can be both at the same time. Reward eating is another one that kind of has the opposite problem because people hear reward eating and they assume it always has to be positive. I don't know that it does. I had a tendency to reward myself with food for like getting through something. Okay, if I can just make it through today, if I can get through this stressful conversation that I'm about to have, or this really tough task at work, whatever that might be, if I get through that, I'm going to reward myself with food, which sounds like a positive thing. But is it? Maybe yes, maybe no. So when you're thinking about your emotional eating, and you want to be asking yourself, am I eating right now to comfort, to reward, or to cope? Because it's important that we identify those emotions because you can't change what you can't see. So unless you're aware of what you're doing, it gets really, really hard to change what you're doing. And one of the first things that you should do, that you need to do, is identify, why are you eating? Why am I eating this right now? Am I, throwing down this full tub of ice cream because I'm feeling insert emotion here. Am I doing this to comfort something, to cope with something, or to reward something? I tended to comfort eat a lot to deal with things like grief. That was a big one for me. And even preemptive grief, which I know that might sound like it's not a real thing. I believe it is a real thing. Actually, I've talked a little bit about my dad and the fact that my dad was a polio survivor, and he was in and out of hospital for most of my childhood. His life expectancy was 35. He lived to be 67. So, he almost doubled that down, which I thought was pretty amazing. But because his health was so precarious and because he was given such a short timeline, I mean, my dad was 30 when I was born. So my mom fully anticipated that she was going to have to raise my brother and I alone at some point because we just didn't know how much time my dad was going to have. And they felt like, and I do completely agree with this decision, they felt like it would not have been fair to my brother and I to just, all of a sudden your dad's gone. So we were prepared for it. We knew that my dad was sick. We knew he was disabled and what was going on, and we knew about the polio and all of that stuff. We also knew that he could die, which is a really weird thing to have to live with. And I mean, I was 37. I had just turned 37 when my dad died, but I had spent my entire life. I don't really have memories of a life before I knew that my dad could die. So I did a lot of grief eating before it even happened because I never knew if we were going to have those milestones. I didn't know if he was going to get to walk me down the aisle. I didn't know if he would be there for the birth of my children. Shit, I didn't even know if he'd be there for my grade 8 graduation. So there was a lot of grief eating before things had even gone bad because I had to live with that grief while he was still alive, which is a whole other thing, right? But it doesn't have to be, it's a lot more complicated than just slotting things into really cute little categories and just label it, oh, it's just emotional eating, we can just deal with it this way. That's not enough. I do think that we need to break it down more. I do think that we need to dive into it because that is our relationship with food. The way that we use food to deal with what we're feeling as opposed to just nourishing our bodies. If we were using food to just nourish our bodies, we wouldn't have a problem. We would be able to use that magical willpower that everybody's talking about, or we would just intuitively eat our way out of it. And no, probably not. My relationship with food was broken. I had to take a different approach. I had to start to understand the emotional eating. The easiest way in for that, I believe, is comfort, reward, and cope. So I'm eating right now because, oh, I'm feeling super anxious. Okay, I'm eating to cope with that anxiety. It's important to label it too, not just so that, you can name the feeling, which is in and of itself very powerful, but it's about what do I do next? I like different foods for different things. If I take the foods that I use to cope with anxiety and use them to comfort my sadness, it's not going to work. I'm just going to end up reaching for my comfort foods later anyway. Using the reward foods or using the cope foods isn't going to work. And they're different for different things, different textures, different experiences of food. Like I've said before, if I'm feeling really anxious, I want something chewy. Like I want something because that action of moving my jaw, I've learned actually helps me to relieve some of the stress and to get some of the anxiety out. But if I sit there with a bowl of pasta or a bowl of ice cream, I'm not going to get what I need out of the food because my relationship with eating when I'm anxious is different than my relationship when I'm eating because I'm sad or because I'm happy or because I'm bored. That's another big one. And all of those patterns and choices and ways that we comfort, reward, and cope can absolutely become habitual. It was a habit for me to reach for certain foods when I was thinking about certain things or coping with certain things. It was just a habit. It was something that I automatically did. It wasn't until I could see that it was a habit, though, that I was able to make some changes with it. And that's why it's so important to isolate what it is the feeling. What am I doing? Am I comforting, rewarding, or coping? And how much deeper can you take that? Because you really can go quite deep with that. When you're starting out, though, the important thing I think is just to label what type of emotional eating am I doing? Oh shit, I'm not eating because I'm hungry right now. I've been telling myself that I'm eating because I'm hungry, but that's not really what's going on here. I'm not hungry. I've taken in enough calories for the day. I've had, the meals I've had, whatever. I'm doing just fine. I'm doing this unnecessary eating right now because I'm feeling emotional. This is emotional eating. And then we can start to dig in and unpack it. But the first step really is just to see it. And then once you've seen it, you can do something about it. You can start to categorize it a little bit further. Oh shit, I'm emotional eating. Well, I wonder what kind I'm doing right now. Oh, I'll bet this is a reward thing because I survived that big meeting at work and I was feeling super anxious about it, but I got through and I did a really good job. And oh, that's totally what I'm doing with this pizza right now. I'm absolutely rewarding myself for getting through. The next step would then be to have the conversation with yourself where you say, hang on, I decided that I wasn't going to be a non-active participant anymore. If I want to reward the behavior with food, that's totally cool. But I need to be present with it. I need to be mindful about it. And it needs to be something that I've planned out, not a habit that I'm just falling into. I really love this next question. I love the way it's worded. I love that someone was brave enough to ask, because if you're thinking it, you're not the only person who's thinking it. Somebody else wants to know. So take a few seconds, jot it down, send it off to me, and I will answer it because you're not alone. And I know there can be so much shame around questions like this. Oh, I should know the answer to this, or, this is obvious. I should have known. No, don't even worry about that part of everything. Just send the questions in. If you're thinking it, somebody else is too. But this next one is really terrific. Is there another way to lose weight without a calorie deficit, or to be in a quote unquote deficit without counting calories every single time? Okay, so the answers are no and yes, sort of. So, okay, we'll start with the first bit there. Is there a way to lose weight without a calorie deficit? No. No. Well, yes, amputation. If you undergo amputation, you can lose weight that way. If not, no. The only way to lose weight is to be in a calorie deficit. I'm sorry, that is the only option that we have. Do I wish it was different? Kind of, maybe a little bit. I kind of like the fact that it's cut and dry like this because at least we know where the goalposts are and we know what we have to do. I find safety in that. That makes me feel free. It makes me feel like I have options because I know what to do. I'm not just fumbling around in the dark trying to figure this out, because I spent years fumbling around in the dark trying to figure this out. It did not work. It wasn't until I figured out the calorie piece, because the calorie piece is the only part that matters. I'm sorry. And I know I just finished talking about emotional eating. Yeah, all of that's true. Lots of things can be true at the same time. You do need to change your relationship with food. You do need to figure out the emotional eating and the comfort, reward, and cope stuff. Sure. Yep. That is all true. And you need to be in a calorie deficit. Every diet, surgery, shake, pill, shot, doesn't matter. Name a diet, name a fad, name a whatever. They all work because they put you in a calorie deficit. Even the ones that aren't overtly focusing on the calories, I'm thinking about things like keto, maybe, where you're not tracking, or some intermittent fasting programs where you're not tracking. You're just counting on the fact that if I eat in this specific window, I'm going to lose weight. You're going to lose weight because you're in a calorie deficit, because the whole thing with intermittent fasting is you're narrowing your windows, right? Oh, I used to eat from the moment I got up until the moment I went to bed. Rock on. Okay, whatever that window looked like, it doesn't matter. But the theory is that if you say, okay, I used to eat from 6 in the morning until midnight, and now I'm only going to eat from 10 in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, I'm going to eliminate all of the eating that I used to do between 6 and 10 in the morning and between 6 o'clock at night at midnight. We're going to eliminate all of that eating. That's going to force a calorie deficit. And for some people, it really does. For other people, because they're not focused on the calories and they're not focused on the tracking, they're just focused on the timing. And they think, well, okay, cool. If I only eat between 10 and 6, then I'm automatically going to lose weight. No, you won't. No, I'm really sorry. But unless you're in a deficit, you can gain weight. Intermittent fasting, you can gain weight on OMAD, one meal a day, that intermittent fasting thing. If you're eating in a calorie surplus and you're doing all of your eating in an hour window, you're going to gain weight. And I can eat all of my calories in an hour. No problem. I love calorie dense foods. that don't take up a ton of room. So I could absolutely gain weight on OMAD. And Lord knows lots of people gain weight on keto. And it's for the same thing, right? With keto, the whole thing is it's a high fat diet. So the fat increases your satiety. So theoretically, you're not going to want to eat as much because you're feeling fuller all the time. And that forces the calorie deficit. Every diet, all of them, every single thing, and not just the diets, the shots, the surgeries, the pills, name it. They all work because of the calorie deficit part, which again, you can view it as chains or you can view it as setting you free because at least the path is clear. I like it because at least the path is clear. So that's the answer to the first chunk of that. Is there a way to be in a deficit without calorie counting every single time? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I don't mean to be glib there. Yes, you can do it. There are people who have tremendous success with that. Some people don't like the pressure of tracking, or it causes too much stress or anxiety, or they have a past relationship with tracking calories that makes it harder and super triggering to do it now. I understand all of that. You can do it for sure. Just, by focusing on eating higher volume, lower calorie, more nutrient dense foods, avoiding whatever your particular trigger or trap foods are for you, then yes, absolutely. But you're fumbling around in the dark. I that I don't mean to be mean, but you really are, because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And the straightest line in weight loss is calorie tracking, because as we established in the first part, the only way the only way to lose weight is to be in a calorie deficit. And the only way to know that you're in a calorie deficit is to track what you're eating. So to my mind, that makes calorie tracking the only weight loss shortcut that there is. You can do it without it, but you're setting yourself up for a harder road. And yeah, I think you're kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face, but it can be done. I just think it's more frustrating because it's going to take longer to see results, and it's going to be that much harder to stay on track. And when you're doing it other people's ways, where it's like, oh, I can only eat cabbage soup, or I can't have carbs, or I can't have this, then I understand the not wanting to track. My whole approach, though, is you can eat whatever you want so long as you're in a calorie deficit. Eat whatever you want, just less of it. That's my whole jam. So if you're eating whatever you want, then you won't have a lot of the other feelings that come along with quote unquote dieting. And I think that makes tracking an easier pill to swallow. Can you give us some tips for intermittent fasting? Yes, I love intermittent fasting. You guys know that I lost my weight with a calorie deficit and intermittent fasting. I used to say it the other way. When I was losing my weight, when I was losing my weight, I would tell people I'm eating whatever I want, but only at night, because I like to watch people's heads explode. Since I started doing this, though, at the beginning, I would tell people, I lost my weight with intermittent fasting and a calorie deficit. And everybody would get so hung up on the intermittent fasting part that there was no focus on calorie deficit. And that was the important part. And we just talked about that. So I flipped them around. But I loved intermittent fasting, and I did it in the early 2000s. I didn't know it was called that then. I just thought I was kind of crazy because all I wanted to do was eat at night. And I've always been like this. And then there's the whole, I feel like my hunger doesn't wake up until I start eating. So if I don't eat during the day, I don't feel hungry. And then I can just relax and eat at night the way that I feel happiest and the way that I most enjoy. Starting out with intermittent fasting, though, this is a meet yourself where you are thing, just like everything else with me. So you need to know where you are so that you can meet yourself there, so that we know where to start. I would just jot down, okay, today I started eating at 7:45 a.m. and I stopped eating at 11:45 p.m. Rock on. Now you know how many hours that is. And I would come up with an average of what it usually looks like for you. And then I would just shave it down. I wouldn't say, oh, well, ordinarily I'm eating 16 hours a day and fasting the 8 hours a night that I'm sleeping. So you're doing what's called an 8-16. The first number is the number of hours that you're fasting. The second number is the number of hours that you're eating. Ideally, you want to hit a point where those two numbers are the same, or the number on the left is bigger than the number on the right. So if you are eating 16 hours a day and fasting for 8, you're doing an 8-16. If you try and flip that, it's not good. It's not going to be pretty. And you guys know I do not like big, sudden, sweeping changes, especially not with the timing of your intermittent fasting. So you're doing an 8:16. What would it feel like if you did a 9:15? If you just took a half an hour off each end, or you took an hour off the morning, or this is all going to, again, meet yourself where you are. Everybody's different. When are you hungriest? Do you need to start your day with a big meal? Do you prefer to end so that you have your whole night ahead of you and, ooh, look at all the food that I can have because I've got all these calories left? What does that look like for you? And just gradually keep tightening it up until that number on the left is bigger than the number on the right. But do not go from an 8:16 to a 16:8. You are setting yourself up for colossal failure. Do the intermittent fasting part slower. Make sure that you have other stuff available to you, and you're going to find out where it's easier for you to cut time. It's easier for me to cut time off the front because I know it's a lot harder for me to hit like 6 o'clock at night and be like, okay, I'm done with food now. I don't live in that world. The world I live in wants to keep eating until almost bedtime. That's just the way it is for me. And Gladys, please, I think we've all walked away from the whole, if you eat after 9 p.m., all of the calories instantly turn into fat and your body just stores it. It's horseshit. Calories can't tell time. Let's forget about all of that. That whole narrative is just, poof, it's gone. We're not even going to think about that part. Let go of the shame that can come along with working on your windows too. There's no better or worse here. Breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. That was a marketing campaign, maybe the most effective one ever, but it was just a marketing campaign, sold a ton of cereal. So just let all of that go and just do what feels best for you. Give yourself time to figure it out. Don't expect it to go perfectly right off the hop, and make sure that you have stuff available to you for those moments when it feels like it's getting too hard. So higher volume, lower calorie options to help you get through the stretches where it is more difficult for you. But I honestly think that the biggest key to success with intermittent fasting is to get into it more slowly and to keep the window flexible. Don't get locked into that mindset of eating at night is wrong or I can't eat during the day. Let the narrative go and just go with where your body wants to go and with what you find works for you. Let it be flexible. And let it be flexible beyond that too, in the sense that, let's say that you're like me and you've decided that you're going to do all of your eating at night, but you've been invited to a super special work luncheon awards thing or whatever. I would eat at that awards, whatever. It doesn't matter that it's outside of my fasting window. If you lock yourself in and this is the only way that I do it, you have to maintain some flexibility, especially when, if you're like me, you're on a longer weight loss journey. It took me over just under 2.5 years to get the 200 pounds off. So I couldn't be super rigid with things all the time. I still had to live my life. You still need to live your life too, even though you're trying to lose weight. Okay, question. When I'm tracking, sometimes I find I'm below my target calorie intake at the end of the day. At that point, I have a choice. Do I eat something and get the calories I need? Or do I not eat if I'm not hungry? I would ask for more details. You're right. Yes, you can either eat something to get the calories that you need, or you cannot eat because you're not feeling hungry. I think increasing your deficit slightly is completely fine. And here's why. Gladys, keyboard's down. Give me another 30 seconds before you make up your mind here. The reason I'm saying that is because sometimes we need to zoom the camera out just a little bit and look at tracking more from not just the one day, but from a series of days. Okay, so it's the end of the day. You've still got 150 calories left on the table. You're not feeling hungry. Should you go take down a couple of Oreos to, get those calories in for the day, or should you leave it? You want to zoom out because you want to take a look. Why do you have those calories left over today? Like, what was going on? Yesterday you were over by 300 calories and today you're under by the 150. Then no, that's going to balance out your week, because in this, and I don't, okay, caveat, We're going to say this right at the beginning. I don't go in for this form of calorie tracking at all. It is not my favorite. I do not like it. I am super, super adamant about this, but it's still a valuable tool. And that's weekly tracking. Sorry, to be super clear. Weekly tracking, where it's like, oh, I have 2,000 calories a day. That means I have 14,000 calories a week. So if I only eat 500 calories every day, then I can just, blow my brains out with food on the weekend. That's planned binging. That's what that is. And I really don't go in for planned binges because they do not repair your relationship with food. I hate cheat days. I hate weekly tracking. And I have a whole bunch of reasons why that I've talked about probably too much on the podcast. But that doesn't mean it isn't still useful. Because yes, if you have 2,000 calories a day, you do have 14,000 calories a week. So if you go over one day, you can level that out over the course of the next few days. It's about the weekly calorie deficit at that point. When it's being used as a tool to schedule binge eating, it is very dangerous and it only damages your relationship with food further. When you use it in this way, like, oh, I have 150 calories left at the end of today. Should I eat those calories? Should I leave those calories? I'm not hungry and I don't really want to eat if I'm not hungry because that's, the behavior that I'm trying to change here. Okay, what happened yesterday? Yesterday, you were over. The day before, you were over. Look at it and balance it out. You don't have to just stay focused narrowly on what's happening with today's calories only. Let's look a little more broadly. What's happening with this week's calories so far? And you can balance things out in that way. But again, that's not an everyday strategy. I know weekly tracking is a thing. I'm a daily tracking person. But in the context of this question, which is a terrific question, I think we need to have that conversation about when it can be more useful. What's a good way to handle the hormonal changes that cause spikes in hunger? I'm on my period and I'm ravenous. I want to honor what my body is telling me by giving it what it needs, but I also don't want to ruin my deficit as a result. Yeah, boy, can I relate to this one because I'm the same. Only for me, it's the week before my period. All I want to do is eat. I am starving all the time. No matter what I eat, I am always hungry. What I learned while I was losing my weight, because I smashed my head off this wall a lot, but it took me a long time to figure this out because I couldn't read my body. I didn't understand my hunger cues. So it wasn't until I got a grip on that it was a lot easier for me to work this out and to balance this out and make it work. But the week before my period, all I want to do is eat. But then once my period starts, that week, I'm not nearly as hungry. My appetite just goes careening off a cliff. It Thelma and Louise's its way out of here. So yeah, I might eat a ton more the week before my period, but the week after my period, I'm eating less and I'm making very different choices. The week before my period, choices tend to be really calorie dense, higher in things like fats and salt and sugar. Whereas the week that my period starts, my choices tend to be higher volume, lower calorie, more nutrient dense foods. And the difference there, those 2 weeks manage to balance each other out. Again, we're zooming the camera back and we're going, okay, this week, calories are a bit of a disaster. But I know that next week, things are going to level off. That came for me with time and experience and just understanding the way that this worked for my body. But it can absolutely work for you too. Take a look for those patterns. You're obviously already paying attention to those hunger cues. What's happening throughout the course of your cycle and what type of balance can you find and make there within that? Because I want you to honor your body as well and give it what it needs, and to a lesser extent, I think, what it's asking for, because I know our bodies can sometimes be pretty unreasonable with their demands and they just want more and more and more and more and more. I would keep tracking. I would still be trying to stay in the deficit, but I'd be giving myself a little bit more leeway that week. And whether that leeway is just, I'm going to eat at maintenance the week of my period, because I think for me, it's before you're on your period and you're ravenous. It's different for all of us. That week then, or that series of days, eat at maintenance. Give yourself the 500 calories back, knowing that this is going to balance out later on in the week or later on in the month. So sometimes we get super persistent Gladyses, and I tend to see them in social media a lot more, especially on Instagram. Although YouTube, the Gladyses are starting to come out on YouTube too, which is fun. So this one came in on a recipe post, and it's not a question, it's just a statement, but I get a lot of statements just like this one. So we're going to address it. And the comment is, "You forgot the sugar is the problem." No, no, Gladys, actually, the sugar is not the problem. The calories are the problem. This one came in on a recipe post where it was, you can have the whole batch of this for however many calories. And this person was adamant that no matter how low my calorie count was, it's not the calories that matter, it's the sugars that matters. And no, the sugar's not the problem. It's 100% the calories that are the problem. Are there a lot of calories in sugar? You betcha. Yeah, there sure are. Now, the irony here is that this recipe actually used sweetener and not sugar, but there was sugar in the fruit, and the vilification of fruit has got to stop. But yeah, when people are criticizing you for your sweet choices or for your sugar, I know we can feel like we have to justify our own existences here. We really don't. And if someone's coming at you with this type of thing, you're not going to change their mind. But yet my response to this individual was the same one as I just gave, which was, no, I'm pretty sure the calories are the problem. And the calories are 100% the problem, Glads. All right, here's our last one for this week. Hi, Charlotte. Hello. Thank you for reaching out. I had a question, maybe for the personal-ish questions at the end of Weight Loss Wednesdays. How did you decide on the title of your program to be Disrupting Obesity? That's a good question, and I wrestled with it. Honestly, I still don't know if I made the right choice or not. And the recent problem with the merch, I think, kind of typifies that, because the word obesity gets me flagged as a body shamer and a fat shamer. Seriously, it really does. The AI bots, I think, are all programmed to, I don't know, they don't like that word. They really don't like that word. If you missed it, sorry, I had it's been resolved. Everything's up and running now, and the merch is awesome. I am so happy with it. But when I first built out my merch store, the bots on the site, and it's a big site. The bots on the site immediately shut me down. Immediately, just gone. And when it's that quickly, when it's like, we're talking less than a minute. So it was clearly a keyword issue, and the keyword issue was obesity. I picked that word, and I picked disrupting obesity. So the disrupting part is easy because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to disrupt the diet industry. I'm trying to change the conversation. I'm trying to do things differently than they've been done before. We're disrupting. And that's what I'm asking you guys to do too. Disrupt those patterns, break things down, change things up, shift things a little bit. The word obesity was a tough one. I needed a word for that. And I knew using the F word would be even worse. Although I self-identify as a former fat girl, I had no problem referring to myself as fat. I was fat. People have a big problem with that word though, and it's very, very triggering for a lot of people. So I can tend to avoid it. I couldn't use the word overweight. It was tough. And it was actually my best friend who helped me. I was brainstorming, and I had just lists of words that I was trying in different combinations, and trying to get the message across of what I was doing. Cause I didn't want to be cute, and I didn't want to be clever. Like I needed it to say what it says. This is what I'm doing. But it's definitely created some barriers for me. And I don't know, I may change it in the future. I'm not sure what I'll do, but it was a long process. It took me a very, very, very long time to settle on something. And I've never been 100% happy with it, but here we are. Some people like it because it spells do. And so I have a lot of women on the platform, or my private social media platform, and then women in my program, my Sustainable 7 thing, who, I'm doing it, which obviously we can't. That's a huge copyright problem. And I'm like, no, ladies, I can't put that on a t-shirt. But yeah, with the DO thing, that's not a great answer to your question. It was a ton of brainstorming. My best friend jumped in and helped me pair those two together. I was like, yeah, disrupting obesity works. That's what I'm trying to do. And there's no winning when it comes to language in the weight loss space. There's no winning. Every word you use is going to upset somebody and not upset somebody else. All you can do is try to do your best and offend the smallest number of people possible. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I will be back next Wednesday with another one of these. If you want to submit a question, and I want you to submit a question, so please do. A link is going to pop up that you can just go over to my website, disruptingobesity.com, and enter in your question. I will get it. I keep everything anonymous unless you don't want me to, which I'm fine with. I have kept everything anonymous up until now. Yeah, feel free to ask anything that you want. In the meantime, keep trying, keep tracking, don't be intimidated, and don't give up. You've totally got this.